This is my Reliquaries exhibition at Strychnin Gallery Berlin.
I suppose we'll sort of do a bit of the time journey thing and sort of go back then. You grew up in California, in San Francisco, and you studied at the Californian College of Arts. What ended up taking you to New York?
I had a teacher who told me to move to New York, and I guess I just decided to do it.
You've been there ever since?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I would stay for about a year, and it's been 10 years.
And how was it that you came into contact with Philip Jacobson then?
That was a complete accident. It was the accident that changed my life, actually. I just was looking on the internet for methods for varnishing, removing varnish, and I came across some mention of the Mish technique, and I immediately knew this was what I'd been looking for. At the time I was painting everything all prima, and I hated painting. It was so much work. I did it because I felt driven to do it, but it was not fun. And the mix technique has just been an amazing gift. And I love also using a technique that was used for 500 years. And when you go to a museum today and look at paintings made with that technique, they look just so beautiful now.
And how long did you study with Phil for?
I have taken his seminar twice.
No.
I'd love to go again. It's a great vacation for an artist.
And have you ever met his teacher, Fuchs?
Yes. Actually, Professor Phil showed Ernst Fuchs a painting of mine, and he said, "That is a fucking great painting," which is still one of the best compliments I've ever gotten.
That is quite a compliment.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you've met the man personally?
Yes,
No.
He's lovely. He's actually was a friend of my uncle in Vienna who was a jazz musician. So he knew him very well and was really thrilled to talk about him.
What are your connections like, art-wise? I mean, we all have many different sort of artist friends, but are you sort of, do you sort of place yourself within the sort of the realm of the fantastics or visionaries, or?
I don't know. I think the closest I could say to having a community, I have a group of women surrealist painters, and we try to meet for tea once a year, and we call it Salon de la Femme, and we have been meeting in New York for about 3 years. It's just it's a wonderful little community. It's kind of changing every time, but the basic members are Carrie Ann Bada, Tina Immel, Laurie Field, and Pam Grossman, who's not a painter but is a curator of surrealist art in New York.
Do you know Maura Holden as well then?
I think I've emailed with her.
Have you met any of the other artists here in Europe at all? Especially like any of the Vienna artists that sort of all studied under the sort of the older...
Oh, I know D.S. Schwartberger a little bit, and
Yeah.
he is amazing. I love his work. But I don't know so many. It's hard being an artist. It's very lonely that way. I guess we're lucky to have the internet, because we're all working so hard that there's not so many chances to travel and hang out with people. A very close friend of mine is Benjamin Vierling, and I'm lucky to get to see him a couple times a year. He's a painter who I really respect and revere, and he also uses the mixed technique, so we get to talk shop. And
Yes, painting makes one lonely, or can.
It can be very isolating sometimes.
Mm.
The hours are long.
And have you got your studio set up in your apartment in New York, or do you have a large loft space somewhere in New York style?
I love that idea, but I don't have one at the moment. I'm painting in what used to be my living room, but it works out okay.
So art has taken over your home?
Basically, yes, right. Yes.
Your artwork is, the artwork that you currently produce is, usually there's a theme of a collection, so previous show was sort of around the concept of the Wunderkammer, and this show is about reliquaries. You put a lot of personal symbolism into your work. Why is it that it's always, why is the fascination with these collections, the symbols?
Oh, I love that question. Because I think that's such an interesting urge that humanity has. We're all so, there's this human urge to collect things, to classify things, to kind of itemize things, to own things, and I find that especially emblematic of our relationship with nature. There's been, for so long, this kind of, humans have feared nature, humans have wanted to control nature, humans have wanted to triumph over nature, and we have done that now to a kind of unprecedented degree. I think it's pretty clear who has won the battle, although nature might still have some nasty surprises for us, unfortunately. But a part of this is this desire to somehow divide nature into its component parts and put the parts into safe little boxes where we can kind of feel ourselves in dominion over nature. And there's also this kind of interesting desire that comes up with reliquaries, for instance, and it's a desire to preserve things in beautiful containers and make them kind of special and separate from everything. So I found that these two urges were kind of similar somehow, and it's almost a strange kind of, it's a place where there's an intersection between science and religion, because in scientific natural history museums you find beautiful little specimens in jars, and then if you go to a church you might find these beautiful reliquaries with saint bones and saint hair and saint parts preserved also in lovely jewel-covered containers. So I wanted to kind of draw this parallel and maybe also start that conversation, about these commonalities between science and religion.
So to you, does the natural living world have a sort of spiritual aspect for you?
Very much, yes, yes. And in a way, that's the kind of mood that I'm really trying to create in my work. A sort of reverence for nature, and I try to bring the feeling of religious paintings into paintings that are actually not religious at all, but paintings that concern nature and the natural world.
Which do you find you spend more time on, the larger or the smaller works? For myself personally, I find that sometimes working on the smaller works can be just as labour-intensive as the larger.
That's true, although there is something about a really big painting that's that's such a it's such a mammoth undertaking, and sometimes I joke that it feels like a bad marriage, because you wake up in the morning and there it is again, and it feels like nothing has changed even though you worked on it all day the day before.
So do you find it really challenging working on the larger pieces then, when you work with such fine detail? For instance, with the work beside you, you've got all of the hairs and everything of the animals and of the tiger skin.
Yes, I love painting larger paintings, but this one, it was pretty intense. It definitely felt sometimes like I didn't know what on earth I was taking on and how I would ever finish it. It was intimidating.
So do you prefer the smaller paintings?
No, I love doing them all.
Mm.
I guess they all have a different challenge. I know what you're saying about the small paintings, and that's definitely a challenge too, because once you begin to get into minute details, there's almost no end to it, and you feel like you could just go infinitely small and infinitely tiny and detailed, but
So what's the smallest brush you work with then? How far do you go down the rabbit hole?
Yes, exactly. Well, I guess it's... I find that I like to use a slightly, not too tiny, but a really good brush with a really fine point. It's more important than
So
the
we're
brush
talking
itself.
double O, triple O, O?
I used to use those, but now I find that I like just a number 1 or 2 brush with a really nice sharp tip. Yeah.
So how long has it been, or when was it that you made the crossover to full-time artist?
Oh.
When did you graduate?
Yeah, when did I graduate? I guess about 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And I haven't spent my entire savings yet.
So things are going pretty well.
They're going okay.
Yeah. And are you exclusively represented by Strychnin, or are you...
In Europe, yes.
Yeah.
But I also show with Rock LaRue in Seattle.
And so where are your major markets then? Is it the US and Europe, Germany?
Yes, yeah. Those two mostly, but I also have a painting in Australia, so...
That wouldn't be John Beinart, would it?
No, it's not actually.
Oh, okay.
Another collector, but I would love to have a piece in his collection, of course.
And while you're over here in Europe, do you spend much time in the museums, visiting the old masters?
Oh yes, as much as I can. Yes, every chance I get.
Do you find the museums here any better than back home in the States, or...?
Oh, well, I guess it depends, but there is definitely, I mean, because I love the Met, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, but there is no more fabulous museum than the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. It is such a beautiful palace with these black marble stairs and the frescoes from Klimt, and you go in there and you feel so good to be an artist, like, oh wow, here I get some respect, you know, like, you feel part of some royal tradition rather than kind of a
It's kind of
pathetic.
Would it be correct to say that, like in the States, the best you could achieve as an artist is rock star status, whereas, like you said, here in Europe, it's royalty?
Oh, that's a really interesting parallel. But that, I guess, has also to do with the American versus European culture. You know, there's no tradition of royalty in America, there's only the tradition of rock stars, I guess. So it's kind of, that's the, yeah.
And
I think that's a very good analogy, yeah.
And which one do you feel more at home in?
Me? Oh, I'll take either.
Both.
Sure, why not?